Hey folks. So, you guys are seeing a lower view than normal. That's just because we're using the webcam on my new laptop as opposed to a video camera because all of my batteries are currently dead and I desperately need to film this because the rest of my weekend is going to be busy. So, just trying to get this out of the way essentially right now. Um, so sorry. Bear with me, please, again. Hi, folks. My name is Jen. I am here today to talk with you about the books that I'm hoping to read in July. Uh, Things are going to be fairly casual again, just because me and TBRs are iffy. Basically, I had every intention of following my TBR for the month, but then of course I went to the bookstore and bought a whole bunch of books, and things just haven't worked out that way naturally. And also I am just in like a rereading mood right now. Besides the fact that there's a whole bunch of new books that I just got that I also really want to read, I also am just very much in a rereading kind of mood. And not just like rereading certain books, but also like rereading like whole series. That's just kind of the mood that I'm currently in as well. So, yeah, we're just gonna work with what we got going on. Everything that I talk about right here is fairly tentative. Before, however, I get into that, I also realized something. Um, so when I presented that book haul video to you all, I realized later that I made an oopsie. So I'd filmed that already right when I got home from the bookstore. And yeah, I had filmed it and then put everything away. And in the course of realizing that I needed to film again, I went through my shelves and picked books off and thought I was all good. I was not all good because I missed a couple. I also missed showing you this shirt, which says, I am not a hoarder, I'm a hero. I rescue books trapped at the bookstore. So I got this at the book barn too. And then two books that I totally missed. The first of which was The Witches by Roald Dahl. This is a childhood favorite of mine, and I never owned a copy and decided that I wanted to grab a copy when I saw it was right there. So got this. This is, of course, is about like, what is his name? I think this is told by him, so I can't remember what his name is. But he's a little boy, and his grandmama tells him about like witches and what to look out for and what to be afraid of and stuff like that. And then they end up going to a seaside area for her health and come across a convention of witches, who are intent on basically like turning all the children of the world into mice because I hate children. Yeah, it's silly. Um, yeah. So grabbed a copy of that. And then I'd also picked up a copy of Bite Me, a love story. This is by Christopher Moore, and this is following this couple who are vampires, and then there's also this young girl who's like a vampire wannabe and wants to like get involved, wants to be a vampire, also get involved like with them. Um, that's basically what it sounds like on the synopsis. It's There's a lot more happening in this. There's a lot more going on. It sounds pretty ridiculous, and I know that this author is like has like pretty he's known for like writing some pretty silly stuff, humorous stuff. I have another book by him um on one of my shelves, which I haven't read yet. But yeah, this one, I don't think I'm gonna read either of these this month. I don't know when I'll pick this up. But this I think I'm gonna save for October because duh. But then on to books that I actually plan on reading in July. So, first off, um, I have an unfinished book that I would like to read, and or the book off of my nightstand of shame, essentially. And that is The Sea Hunters by Clive Cussler. So yeah, basically, I would like to finish reading this. I read this like years ago. And I started doing a reread of it last year and never like finished it. So I want to try to finish this. This is True Adventures of Famous Shipwrecks, and this is basically Clive Cussler and Craig Durgo, and basically their version of NUMA, the National Underwater Marine Agency, which is a fictional organization that is in the so at least in the Dirk Pitt novels. I think it's also in the Kurt Austin novels. But it's like Cussler's like made up organization. And they ended up making a real one for the purpose of like finding shipwrecks and documenting them and stuff. So this is the account of all of those. He usually talks a little bit about like a fictionalized version of how the ship sunk, basically. And then not like fully fictionalized. He is based on real things, but like he'll give personalities and stuff like that to various people involved in things. Um, and then it goes into the actual process of looking for and finding, documenting the wreck and everything. There's pictures in here. It's pretty cool. So I'd really like to actually finish reading this summer because just, a shipwrecky kind of mood. Speaking of Clive Cussler, I'm kind of in the mood to like do some more reading of Clive Cussler's like fiction as well. I was gonna do it like chronologically, I think is how I want to move through everything. Even though I think I have some of them are like, chronologically right next to each other. But then there's like big gaps of time with some of the other novels. But yeah, that's what I currently own. I am not going to reread Pacific Vortex, which is technically first Dark Pit ever, although it was published later. Because I remember when I reread that the first time, I didn't really like it. And same goes for Cyclops. I don't think I'm gonna reread that one because I also did not really enjoy it. I don't want to get through it either of those two because I do intend to collect his um, the entire Dark Pit collection at some point, but I just don't really feel like rereading them. However, I would like to reread Sahara just because this is one of my favorites. Yeah, so I would like to give this a reread, hopefully this month, just because I'm in the mood for a Clive Cussler. And I'd also like to read Raise the Titanic, which is the first. No, it's not the first book. It is. This one comes before this one chronologically. So this is one of the ones that I recently got in the book haul. And basically, um, it says from the opening moments when the Titanic crashes into an iceberg and perishes in the greatest sea disaster of the century, you'll be caught up in an astonishing, spellbinding blockbuster, superb novel of terror and mystery. In our hold, an incredibly rare substance that can ensure America's security from foreign attack forever. The Russians want it, the Americans want it, and you want to read this riveting tale of suspense. Yeah, so sounds pretty interesting. I know there's all kinds of rumors about what the Titanic actually had in it. I think there was like something about Egyptian mummy remains or something. I have no idea if that's factual or not. I read that when I was a kid in like this sensationalized book, so I have no idea. But um yeah, so I want to give this a reread because I've been wanting to read this book for a long time. Or I want to pick this up, and then I would also like to do a reread of Sahara. I think the next one chronologically in the series would also be a new one to me, which is Dragon. I don't know if I will pick that up this month too. With these books, sometimes I blow through them, and then sometimes I'm just kind of stuck in them for a while. So we'll see how that goes. Um, I don't really have a classic on my list this month because currently, currently I'm still reading Bleak House, so that kind of counts as a classic. But also, I think I mentioned in a previous video, but I'd realized fairly recently that I'm mostly caught up on my unread classics for the most part. Um, but I now have nonfiction, which is completely out of control. You can see it here. It starts here, nonfiction, and goes this whole shelf behind me, and then continues on down here, and then you can kind of, these are romance novels right here. Um, it's basically, I think that counts as like maybe two shelves worth of books, most of which are unread. So that's out of control. I now need to make myself read a nonfiction book a month. So for that, I decided, well, this is also on my 23 and 23. That's another thing too. I was looking recently and realized that I pretty much screwed the pooch on the 23 and 2023 challenge because I think I've only read like 6 books, maybe 7, but I think it's like 6 books off of that so far. I have so many left. So yeah, in the interest of moving further along in that, I'm picking up Cultish by Amanda Montell. This is the language of fanaticism. And yeah, I know a little bit about this book because I watched, I think it's, oh, I can't remember what her actual name is, but her channel is Books Like Whoa. Um, and she did a really like fascinating video which in part was about this. It was like a part review of Cultish and also talking about like her own interest in um fanaticism and her own like personal experiences with it. So it was really interesting. That is basically all I know about this book is from that review. And yeah, it just breaks down like what makes cults so intriguing and frightening. And honestly, cults do frighten me quite a bit. Those are usual podcast episode skippers for me. I don't often listen to those just because of how insidious things are. It ends up like just making me really mad or really scared. Yeah. But I wanted to, dive deeper into that and actually learn more about fanaticism and stuff like that. So I thought this would be a fascinating read and um I figure hell it's as good a time as any to to pick this up. I mean, considering what's going on with like book banning across the country right now, might as well just pick that up. Um Also in the interest of books on my 23 and 2023 list, I have a couple of books that I possibly maybe liked. Like I said, everything on here is fairly tentative. Um, but a couple of the books that I think I might be possibly in the mood for, I figure I might as well pick up. I think I'm feeling spooky. I'm kind of honestly in the mood to reread The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon right now, which I might honestly reread that at some point soon. Um, but I since I'm kind of in the mood to do a reread of that, I figured, well, it's a good time to pick up some Kang. So Billy Summers is on my list for this month. Hopefully, this is about a guy who's basically the garbage man. In a sense, he is like a hitman. And but he makes it very clear that the only people he will take out are legitimately terrible people. um that he says he'll be society's garbage man basically, and this is basically talking about a journey that he ends up doing because it's like this is supposed to be his last job, but everything goes terribly wrong and now he's on the run. So yeah, um would like to pick this up because he sounds like a very morally great character, and I kind of like the hitman with a heart of gold, kind of like Dexter acts. I'm a terrible person, but I'm terrible to terrible people person, kind of like a thing. I don't always agree with them, but I find them fascinating. So it's kind of like, yeah, that kind of vibe. So that's on my 23 and 2023. And also, I figured I could pick up Sadie by Courtney Summers. I've been putting this off for a while, to be honest, because I thought I'd get the audiobook. Um, but I just don't want to spend money on the audiobook when I already own a physical copy. So I'm just gonna suck it up and read it. Um, it is basically, it is partly in Sadie's point of view, and it's also partly in like podcast episode like transcriptions, um, because this is talking about a young woman named Sadie. Her younger sister, she basically ended up having to raise. Her younger sister is murdered by, I think he might be a serial killer, possibly. Um, and Sadie disappears immediately afterwards. And this is like partially in her point of view, but also partially in the transcripts of a podcast where this true crime guy is like looking into the murder of her sister and what happened to Sadie and trying to like find her. Um, so yeah, I I think this is going to be really fascinating. I do not think this is going to be an easy read at all. But I think it's still going to be very entertaining, and I have heard good things about it. In the interest of other mysteries, I'd also like to pick up this one I got recently. It is Murder in Memoriam. I said I would learn what this gentleman's name is. I am so sorry I have not learned how to pronounce it yet. It is Didier Dynick. We're going with that. I will find out how it's actually pronounced for my wrap up. But this is basically um it says October 17th, 1961, 20,000 Algerians marched in Paris in a peaceful protest against a curfew. They met with ferocious police violence. 11,000 were arrested, more than 1,000 injured, and as many as 300 killed. The records were later buried, perpetrators placed beyond prosecution. This is a fierce fictional investigation of the real life massacre. Roger Thurod, a history teacher in Paris, never makes it home to his pregnant wife. That day, it's assumed he was swept up in the violence. 20 years later, his son Bernard reopens his father's research, a history of his hometown, Drancy, now notorious as a site from which Jews were deported to Auschwitz. When Bernard, too, is killed, Inspector Caden suspects a connection. But why would anybody want to kill two bourgeois history teachers? This confronts two of the darkest chapters in French history, its colonial racism and its complicity in genocide. So, oh, it was published more than a decade before the French government's public admission of the crimes led to the shocking downfall of one of their most legendary public officials. That's pretty cool. Um, yeah. Also, this is not going to be an easy read. But I I've been wanting new mysteries, new to me mysteries. I've been wanting more French novels. So I am pretty excited to be hopping into this as well. I did read like the first chapter again and got kind of pulled into it, so I think this is the time for it because I'm vibing with it. In the interest of July being like a kind of patriotic month, I'm also thinking about potentially picking up Common Sense this month. This is by Thomas Paine. It was one of the pamphlets that was passed around during the Revolutionary War. Um, and I actually read this in its entirety when I was in high school because I had a really good teacher in eighth grade, and not my original teacher. She was a substitute teacher that we got later in the year, and um, I don't know. I just ended up getting like super into the Revolutionary War after that, and like stuff like this. So I yeah was super into this. I have not read this since then. Um, but I would like to. So I think this might be a good time to read this. Thomas Paine was also a pretty fascinating person too. I don't know that much about him besides what there is on Wikipedia, but he sounds like he was just pissing off people left and right and just um
but being like a pretty smart, smart dude at the same time. Yeah. So yeah, I thought it would be a good time to maybe get into this. And I remember just really loving the hell out of this and thinking this was like the greatest thing I'd ever read when I was in high school. I don't know how I feel about it now. Um, but yeah, I figured, hey, why not? Let's read that. Um, I'm still also continuing my trying to read through the Confessions of George and Nicholson um series, but I would also, just because it's the summertime and I'm in the mood for it, I also want to do a reread of the Percy Jackson series. This I think is doable because I mean I've gotten through all of these in like a month before. They are really quick reads. Um, yeah. So my plan is to just reread the whole, just these. I'm not gonna get into Heroes of Olympus because I did really like Heroes of Olympus, but um, just this this particular series holds a special place in my heart. So yeah, I'm just gonna reread these, and I'm also dropping it. I'm also going to read this one that I just recently picked up, which is the Demigod Files, which is like an extra companion novel. So yeah, that's what I'm also hoping to get to. So yeah, guys, that's my fairly tentative TBR for the month. Don't know how things are gonna go. Everything's pretty much up in the air because, like I said, I have a lot I want to reread. I have a lot that I want to read in general. So, I mean, it's all just guesswork at this point. We'll see. We'll see what happens basically. Anyway, um, yeah, this is everything that I may or may not read. Let me know what you guys are up to in July, what you're planning on reading, if any of these sound good to you, if you've read any of these before. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for always watching. If you are new here, please consider subscribing if you would. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.